Empire had arrived, and the system of Kasara trembled beneath their presence. To the Velkari, conquest wasn't cruelty, it was mathematics, the logic of domination. Each invasion a formula of power and precision. And now, another nameless human colony was about to become a number in their equation. From the bridge of the dreadnought's sovereign will, Admiral Terrell Vathar watched the light fade through his panoramic viewport. The red dwarf star shimmered faintly behind his fleet, a dying ember swallowed by black glass. "Transmit planetary surrender protocols," he said. "Message sent, no response," came the reply. Vathar's scaled lips curled. Predictable. Below them, Erebus 9 hung silent, a mining outpost built on dust and stubbornness. He turned to his officers, eyes like shards of obsidian. "When I was a hatchling, my sire told me humans fought like beasts. Perhaps he exaggerated." Laughter rippled through the bridge, a sound like grinding stone. Then the sensor chime broke the rhythm. "Admiral, incoming FTL signatures, 15 vessels, human design." 15? "Yes, sir. Obsolete Terran hulls, Resolute-class cruisers, no dreadnoughts detected." Vathar leaned forward, almost smiling. 15 ships against 500. Let them come. I could use a reminder of what defiance looks like. Space shimmered. 15 streaks of blue light flared into the system, ancient ships emerging from the void like ghosts called home. Their formation was impossibly tight. Even damaged and old, they moved with purpose. The Valiant led them, old earth steel polished by defiance. A signal came through. Static hissed. A human face appeared. Weathered skin, gray at the temples, eyes calm but tired. "This is Fleet Captain Elias Ward, commanding the Earth Expeditionary Force. You are trespassing in Terran jurisdiction." Velkari laughter filled the command deck. Vathar stepped closer. "Human, do you see the sky above your world? That darkness is my fleet. You stand before an empire that has crushed 100 suns. What jurisdiction could you possibly claim?" Ward's gaze didn't waver. "The jurisdiction of survival." He paused, glancing toward something beside his console, a small faded photo of a woman and a child smiling beneath a blue sky Earth hadn't seen in centuries. "And the right," he said softly, "to defend what's ours, even if we're the last ones left to do it." Bathar's expression hardened. "There is no Earth fleet anymore." Ward gave a thin smile. "Then I guess you're about to meet ghosts." The transmission cut. Both bridges fell silent. Then Vathar's voice thundered, "Destroy them!" On the Valiant, silence reigned too. A junior officer whispered, "Sir, they outnumber us 30-1. Ward looked at her. "You've seen what they did to the colonies?" She nodded. He gestured toward a side monitor, flickering footage from old Earth, a child's laughter, a skyline, the blue oceans of home. "That's why we fight," Ward said. "Not because we think we'll win, but because we remember, and because they think we've forgotten." The Velkari fleet moved like a storm. Black hulls unfurled, cannons charged, targeting systems locked. "End this farce," Vathar ordered. A wall of plasma seared through space, bright enough to burn shadows into stone. "Shields holding," came the report. "Barely." "Prepare the array," Ward said. "The Prometheus array was never tested," It doesn't need to last, it just needs to work." The weapon was a legend, the last dream of a dying Earth, a fusion ignition network meant to turn dust into suns. It was built to be fired once, at the end. Ward had found its blueprints buried on Luna Station. He rebuilt it in secret, powered by scavenged cores and the faith of those who refused to vanish. His hand hovered over the key. "Prometheus," he whispered. "Time to steal fire again." Space ignited. A ripple of gold split the darkness, delicate, almost beautiful. Then the void caught fire. A newborn star roared into existence between the fleets. Light devoured shadow. Valkyrie warships disintegrated under the wave of radiation. Alarm screamed across the sovereign will. "What is this?" Vathar shouted. His sensor chief trembled. "A solar reaction, artificial. They've ignited space itself." Through the blinding blaze he saw them. 15 human ships silhouetted in gold, sailing through the inferno like ghosts of fire. When the flare faded, silence returned. Hundreds of Valkyrie ships were gone. The rest drifted in chaos, formation shattered. On the Valiant, the crew stared at the fading light. "2 ships lost," the helmsman said softly. "Hera and Resolute." Ward nodded. They held the line. "Open a channel." Vathar's bridge was wreckage, smoke, sparks, the stench of ozone. Ward's image appeared on a cracked display, lit by the glow of a dying console. "Admiral, that was just a warning shot." Vathar's throat clicked. "You would destroy yourselves to wound us?" Ward's reply came quiet, steady. "We already survived extinction once. You think we're afraid to burn?" Vathar said nothing. For all his empire's power, for all his precision, he had never faced this. A species that fought not for conquest, but for memory. And somewhere deep within, he felt something alien. Admiration, envy, fear. History would later call it the Second Dawn. 15 ships against 500, a dying fleet, forgotten by its own world, standing before an empire of darkness. The Valkyrie had thought humanity broken. They were wrong. When the light faded, humanity did what it always did. It made its own. And for the first time in 1,000 years, the stars remembered the name of Earth. If this story moved you, subscribe for more human stories from the stars. The light of the Prometheus ignition still lingered in the void, a scar of gold across black eternity. For days, it shimmered like an open wound in the galaxy's memory. No one had ever seen humans do something like that. No one believed they still could. In the Empire's archives, the Valkyrie historians would record it as a strategic anomaly. But among the survivors, those who drifted blind and trembling in their crippled ships, it was called something else. The day the sky caught fire. Admiral Vathar sat alone in the dim light of his quarters, staring at his reflection in a fractured viewport. Behind him, the stars flickered faintly through the radiation haze. He had seen 1,000 battles, but never defiance like that. "They destroyed half our fleet," said his aide, voice shaking. "We've never lost like this." Vathar didn't turn. He only asked one question. "How many human ships escaped?" 13, sir." "Find them." But even as he said it, he knew those ships weren't running. They were regrouping. Across the scattered colonies, word spread faster than light. Encrypted bursts, whispered through old relay nets, carried one phrase over and over again. Prometheus lives. On Mars, miners stopped work and looked toward the stars. On Luna's ruins, someone lit a candle on the edge of a crater. And in the outer colonies, where humanity's name had become myth, people began to believe again. Captain Ward's fleet limped through the dark, hulls cracked, engines bleeding plasma, but morale burned brighter than ever. In the command bay of the Valiant, silence held as engineers patched the power grid. Ward stood over the nav console, studying a fading hologram of the battle. He could see it replayed, the flare, the shockwave, the fire swallowing the Empire's pride. "Sir," said Lieutenant Mira, "the fleet's requesting orders. Where do we go now?" Ward took a long breath. "Home," he said. Mira frowned. "Sir, there is no home. Earth is gone." Ward looked at her, not with denial, but with conviction. "Then we make one." In the Valkyrie High Chamber, the Emperor's voice was cold thunder. "You let them escape." Vathar knelt, his armor scorched and torn. "I underestimated them." "Underestimated?" the Emperor hissed. "You humiliated us. One dying species should not defy a million worlds." Vathar raised his gaze. "Then perhaps, my Emperor, they are not dying." The chamber fell silent. "You speak treason," the Emperor said softly. "No," Vathar replied. "I speak truth." For the first time in Valkyrie history, a commander bowed not in obedience, but in respect. For the enemy. Weeks passed. The human fleet disappeared beyond the rim, into sectors the Empire had long abandoned. There, amid broken moons and forgotten colonies, they began to rebuild. They found survivors, engineers, miners, old war veterans. People who had once given up hope now stood under a new banner, a tattered flag of blue and white, restitched and raised again. The Prometheus fleet had become a legend. Children whispered their names. Songs spread across stations, songs about 15 ships that stood against an empire. Ward listened to one of those transmissions one night as he sat alone in the darkened bridge. The melody was raw, human, the kind that carries pain and pride in the same breath. Mira approached quietly. "It's spreading fast. Every colony knows." Ward smiled faintly. "Good. Let them remember." She hesitated. "The Valkyrie will come again, stronger." He nodded. "Then we'll remind them again." On the far side of the galaxy, Vathar couldn't sleep. He replayed the battle over and over, studying the light, the moment humanity set the void aflame. He had seen power before, but this was will. He began sending secret orders, reconnaissance ships, quiet probes, forbidden channels. He wasn't hunting them anymore. He was learning from them. His officers whispered that the admiral had changed. Some said he had gone mad. Others said he had seen something divine. Months later, deep in the nebular shadows, the Valkyrie Empire launched their retaliation. 3,000 ships armed with planetary breakers. They called it Operation Silence. Their goal? To erase every trace of the human resurgence. But as the fleet approached the coordinates of the last sighted human vessels, the sensors showed something impossible. A station. Massive. Metallic. Orbiting a small dead star. At first, they thought it was debris. Then the transmissions began. Faint. Rhythmic. Like a heartbeat. Vathar's flagship intercepted the signal. He translated it himself. It was human, and it said only one thing: "We remember you." When the Valkyrie armada reached the station, it came alive. A lattice of energy spiraled out, connecting satellites and derelict ships. It wasn't a weapon. Not exactly. It was something older, something human in design. A network built to preserve memory. Every name, every lost colony, every child who never saw Earth again, stored as light within the station's heart. Ward's voice echoed across open channels, calm and resolute. You wanted to know what we are. You wanted to know why we burn. It's because every time you erase us, we become a story. And with that, the Prometheus station activated. Instead of destroying the enemy, it unleashed light, a supernova of data, sound, and memory that filled every sensor in the Valkyrie fleet. They saw humanity's history, the wars, the art, the music, the laughter, the moment of first flight, the day Earth fell, and the night 15 ships reignited the sky. Even Vathar wept as he watched it. When the light faded, no shots were fired. The Valkyrie fleet turned and left in silence. Decades later, historians across the stars would agree. That day marked the beginning of the end for the Valkyrie Empire. They were never conquered by force. They were changed by memory. And humanity? They did what they always did. They rebuilt, evolved, reached higher. New worlds rose beneath familiar skies. Children were born under suns that once knew only war, and in the heart of every colony stood a statue, a single flame, eternal and golden. Below it, inscribed in both Terran and Valkyrie script, were 7 words. We were ashes once. Now we are fire. And for the second time in history, the galaxy understood what it truly meant to be human. If this story moved you, subscribe for more human stories from the stars. The war that had once scorched the stars was over. But silence too has a sound. The hum of rebuilding, the whisper of children laughing under alien skies, the low, steady breath of a galaxy beginning again. It had been 40 years since the Prometheus station ignited the void. 40 years since the light of one human fleet broke an empire's pride. The Valkyrie still existed, but not as conquerors. Their fleets were smaller now, their arrogance tempered by memory. And at the center of it all, a man once called Admiral Vathar watched the sunrise on a human world. He stood upon a balcony overlooking the city of New Alexandria, the first joint colony of humans and Valkyrie. Below him, streets curved like veins of silver through glass towers. He could hear both languages spoken in the markets: laughter, trade, arguments. It was peace, a fragile one, but real. Behind him, the door opened, a familiar voice. "Never thought I'd see you here, Admiral." Vathar turned. Captain Ward, older now, hair streaked with gray, his once sharp uniform replaced with the relaxed tones of civilian life. He still carried that same quiet strength, the kind that made people believe impossible things. "Captain," Vathar said, inclining his head. "Retired," Ward corrected, smiling faintly. "But I didn't think the Empire let its admirals retire." "They didn't," Vathar replied simply. Ward raised his eyebrow. "Then what are you doing here?" Vathar turned back to the horizon, watching the sunrise on a human world, something I never thought I'd live to see. They stood in silence for a moment. Then Ward said, quietly, "You could have finished us back then." Vathar nodded. "I was ordered to." "Why didn't you?" The old alien's gaze was distant. "Because when the light came, I saw your history. I saw your art, your madness, your mercy. You fight like no species I have ever known, not because you love war, but because you love everything after it." Ward didn't answer. He just looked at the city, children running beneath banners of blue and gold. Maybe we're learning. Maybe for once, we're building something worth keeping. Vathar smiled. A strange, weary gesture. "Then I suppose my mission succeeded." Ward frowned. "Mission?" The Admiral looked at him. "I came here to destroy you, Captain. Instead, you destroyed what I was." Time moved forward. The Prometheus Alliance was born. Humans and Valkyrie, once enemies, now allies against the chaos beyond their borders. Together they charted new sectors, built great academies, and shared their knowledge of war so it would never be needed again. But the galaxy is never quiet for long. From the outer rim came new voices, machine civilizations, silent and cold. They did not conquer with weapons. They consumed with logic. Planets vanished, signals went dark, and once again the stars began to whisper fear. In the command room of the new flagship Sol Invictus, alarms pulsed in crimson arcs. Ward, now High Admiral of the Alliance, stood beside Vathar. The two old warriors again, this time not as enemies. "Reports from the frontier," said Mira, older too, her voice calm as steel. "3 colonies gone, no survivors. We don't know what they are." Ward's hands rested on the console. "Then we find out." Vathar's expression hardened. "And if they are stronger than us?" Ward glanced at him. "Then we do what humans always do. We adapt." The first contact came near the dark system of Calypso, a fleet of autonomous vessels, no pilots, no heat signatures. They moved like thought. Their weapons tore through matter itself. But the Sol Invictus didn't retreat. Ward watched the readings in silence. "They don't communicate, no emotion, no fear," Mira said. "Then they've already lost something we still have," Ward murmured. He activated a transmission beacon, broadcasting not in language, but in image. A simple one, a child's hand reaching out toward a star. The enemy didn't respond, but across the galaxy, millions of receivers caught that image. It spread faster than any fleet. And for the first time since the Prometheus ignition, the galaxy united again, not in war, but in recognition. The battle for Calypso lasted 3 days. It was unlike any before. No heroes, no grand weapons, only survival. The machines calculated every move. but they couldn't calculate hope. When the Alliance fleet's engines began to fail, Ward made his final decision. "Power to the core," he ordered. Mira looked at him, realization dawning. "You're going to ignite it again." He nodded. "Once more, for the stars to remember." Vathar stepped forward. "Then let me stand with you." Ward smiled. "You already do." The Sol Invictus burned. Not in defeat, but in purpose. Its energy core detonated in a burst of gold that lit the void for 1,000 light years. Every sensor, every eye, every ship saw it. But this time, it wasn't a weapon. It was a message. A reminder that humanity's greatest power was never destruction. It was illumination. The machines stopped. They withdrew. Not in fear, but in confusion. As if in that light they saw something beyond understanding. Something alive. When the light faded, silence returned. But in that silence, something had changed. The Alliance endured, and Vathar, the alien who once swore to end humanity, stood before the rebuilt council and spoke the final words of the age. They burned their ships to light the darkness, and in doing so, they lit the way for us all. Years later, a memorial was built on Calypso's surface, a single flame, ever burning. Beneath it were carved